Hi, I'm Larry Menti. Welcome to a special presentation of Jersey Matters. We're recording the show this week in Trenton, New Jersey, the state capital. Behind me right there is the State House. That's where the Assembly meets. They're not in session right now because they are all running for election. For the first time in 25 years, the Assembly tops the election ballots. We're going to talk about that over the next half hour with a longtime State House reporter, the minority leader in the Assembly who's hoping the Republicans can win a majority, a Democrat running for the first time who hopes that's not going to happen, and we'll look at the poll numbers. It's an election special. This is Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti, and welcome to our special coverage of the 2015 election in New Jersey. Joining me now is Mike Symons, who covers the State House for the Asbury Park Press and APP.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there any chance, all the Assembly is up on Tuesday, is there any chance the Democrats now hold the majority? They have 48 seats, I believe, out of the 80. Is there any chance whatsoever that the Republicans could win the Assembly?
No, probably not. I mean, I suppose it's conceivable if all the Democrats think the election's in the bag, we're going to stay home. But the map is very favorable to Democrats that was drawn up a few years ago, so there aren't very many competitive races, and there's not a big groundswell of support, if you believe the polls, for Governor Christie right now. And so there's not a lot of wind at the backs of the Republicans.
I think I read recently that there are only 5 contested races. Is that about right?
Yeah, right around there. The 1st and 2nd district in South Jersey are split between the two parties, so those will certainly be competitive and could go either way. There's a district up in Bergen County that the Democrats hold that the Republicans would like to have a shot at, but the way that the race has developed, they don't appear to have a very good chance there. And then there's a couple other places where money is being spent. The districts favor the Republicans generally, but the Democrats think that demographically and for other reasons that they have a shot.
So in 90% of the races, then, the incumbent should win, is expected to win.
Sure. If it was only 90%, that would be rare. Incumbents generally get elected at reelected at even bigger rates than that.
Yeah, but it's over 90%. Even this one, if you take it just as 5 contested races, it would still be over 90%. You're absolutely right. Thanks for correcting my math.
No, but even in past years, even if the map is marginally more competitive than it is now, incumbents generally have more money. And that's certainly the case this year as well. And they're better known. I mean, it's hard not a lot of people even know they're incumbent Assembly members who have been representing them for 2, 4, maybe even longer than that. But for a challenger to get their name out there and become well enough known to knock off an incumbent is a really big hurdle to climb.
But it's something more than that, too. A little bit later, we're going to have somebody in from the Rutgers-Eagleton poll, and there's just no interest in these off-year elections for the Assembly. There hasn't been, according to the person we're going to have in, for 40 years or 50 years. And when that happens, that favors the incumbent heavily, and it favors the person who has the stronger organization, which would normally be the incumbent, or that has the numbers in their favor, is it your Democratic district or a Republican district. So it would make it so once you're in office, if nobody's going to turn out to vote, you're going to stay in office the rest of your life.
Yeah, and that's the case with members of Congress as well. I mean, it happens in a lot of legislative races where it's hard for a challenger to become well enough known to get out there. It's a rare situation this year in New Jersey, too, where the state assembly is at the top of the ballot. New Jersey runs its elections in odd-numbered years for the most part, which is rare. Very often there's a governor's race at the top of the ballot, or at least a state senate race, which is a little bit higher profile. This is the first time since 1999 that the state assembly is the highest ranking office on the ballot, and that isn't going to drive a lot of extra people necessarily to go out.
No, I mean, they're talking about, the poll that I was just talking about, it's like 5% of the people know exactly what you just said, and not many more than that knew there was an election. So the turnout was going to be dismal.
Right, and I think the expectations are somewhere between 20 and 25% of registered voters will turn out, which would be a record low if that proves to be the case. The good news, I suppose, is that if you're on the fence about whether to go vote or not, your vote will count more than usual. Not that they're going to count it more than once, but most other people are going to stay home. So whether you're voting for the opponents of the incumbents or you're voting for the incumbents themselves, there's a value to going out and voting and participating because it makes your elected officials take notice. If something's going on in that town, those people are turning out to vote. I better find out what they want to know.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a wonderful point. Just give me, I'm sure taxes is the top issue. A couple of issues that should be important to people, and talk about how important the Assembly is in these issues.
Right. Property taxes are perennially the #1 concern in New Jersey and remain so. It probably has been for about 10 years. And the state assembly, the state legislature, and the governor have a lot to do with that. They don't levy property taxes at the state level, but the amount of aid that gets sent to schools and towns then affects whether or not those schools and towns have to raise taxes to meet their bills or not. So there's certainly a connection between Trenton and property taxes, even if that tax isn't being levied from here. Another tax-related issue, since people always care about pocketbook issues, is what they're going to do about transportation funding going forward. There hasn't been a whole lot of talk about that in this year's campaign, but right after the election, they're going to come back to Trenton and probably deal with whether or not to raise the gas tax to pay for road projects or find some other way, because the state needs to do that going forward.
Mike, thank you so much. I appreciate you talking about this. I hope we can get people interested. You made a great point in that your vote even means more this year. When we come back, we're going to talk to a Republican and a Democrat, a longtime Republican, as a matter of fact, the minority leader in the Assembly, who thinks they're going to take the Assembly, even though nobody else seems to think that, and a first-time Democrat who is running in Monmouth County. That's when this special edition of Jersey Matters continues.